so I found a flaw in using stems, right? So if you remap your stems, this is a DDJ SR2. I do the same for my DDJ SX2, right? So if you remap your stems to say your slicer, most people send it to the slicer, some people send it to the roll. What that does is it takes out your cue pads. So you can't do stems and like if you like to hit cues, it's not going to work, right? Because you got to either do slice it and you got to jump over the cues, right? It's too much. But I like the full control of using stems and being able to use my hot cues, right? So instead of using slicer or the roll, what I've done is I MIDI mapped to grid adjust. I don't normally use grid adjust when I'm mixing. If I gotta adjust the grid, I'm gonna do that beforehand. If not, I'm gonna just mix without the grid being aligned because I don't use the key sync at all or too much while I'm doing live mixing unless I'm doing something, you know, big time. I'm trying to change a acapella to be EDM, whatever it may be. But anyway, I use these two buttons as my, what do you call it? What am I showing here? Stems, right? My two stems. I use the top one for my acapella and the bottom one for my instrumentals. That way, I still got my hot cues on my pads available to me, and I can, with two hands, I can jump from instrumental acapella and use my pad. So let's jump over here, right? So you normally you have your MIDI maps, your vocals, your melodies, your bass, your drums, you know, and then you have your effects, right? But there's also these two buttons up here, right? This microphone and this keyboard, right? Right next to the BPMs, right? So the top one will give you acapella stems and the bottom one will give you instrumental stems, right? So you never have to, back in the day, we had to use an instrumental track, we had to use a regular track, and you had to switch over. Well, I can just, inside of a regular track, I can just hit this button and it turns into instrumental. But I don't necessarily want to hit these buttons on my laptop. I want to be able to use one of the buttons here, and this is where I MIDI map them to, right? So same one for the right, I would MIDI map right deck to adjust or slide, right? So the way you do that is you go to MIDI, and I already had these set up, right? You go to MIDI, and then you can map whatever you want, right? So you would click on the microphone, and then you would come over to your controller, and then boom, for left deck, hit this top grid adjust, right? Then that will map that acapella button inside of Serato to your controller. The bottom one, slide deck, you would have to do the same. Once you hit the button on the controller, then and it's locked in, you would do the same. Boom, I want this to be my instrumental button. So you would click that, come over to your controller, click where you want to map it to, and then the same goes for the right side, right? You would just come over to the right-hand side here. Yep, click microphone, boom, click grid adjust on the right deck, click keyboard, and boom, click slide. And now I have control over acapellas and instrumentals all while keeping my hot cues open, right? Because sometimes here, I'm gonna see if I can, let's see if I can do this. So I'm trying to do this while holding the phone, but as you can see, so again, a quick way to run it, right? And control. All right, so boom, that's that. Now, for those of you that say, hey, my MIDI is grayed out, right? You got to turn it on, right? You got to activate it. And let me just, I'm doing too much. Let me just uncheck that. Go into your settings here. And then you're going to go to the MIDI tab. And then there is a selection. If this is not checked, you need to check that to allow Serato hardware remapping. You check that, and now you will have this MIDI button available to MIDI map anything, any buttons inside of Serato, you can map however you want to your controller. Now, the reason I use these two, one, I never touch them. I never use them during a mix. And two, because it mirrors so well with how it's set up in Serato, the microphone and the keyboard, right? So that mirrors that. The top one is the microphone, the bottom is the keyboard or acapella instrumental, right? And if you just wanted to bring it back, right? Because right now it's set to instrumental. Right now it's set to instrumental. You just click, turn it off. Now you don't get the echo. That's the only bad part about it. You don't get the echo out. I mean, if you need all that, you can still go through the system or use your pads. But if you are, if you use your pads during your mixes like I do, I need both, right? So I need to be able to quickly jump between hot cues and stems. So that's how I do it. So not really a flaw, but I think that's my fix. I've not seen or heard anybody post anything on MIDI mapping the acapella instrumental while using a hot cue. So boom, there you go. DJ Mike Marvelous, Marvelous DJs, hot cue. That's it.